Let's see. Hey, Wall Run Wooly and Pop Vault Pat. Connie here. Ever since it first came out, and others have proclaimed they've loved the Never Fire a Bullet achievement in Mirror's Edge.
That's us.
Mm-hmm. I feel it's obviously, or rather, they proclaim it's obviously the superior way to play the game. It's been a take I could never get behind. The issue is that running fast and doing cool parkour is the only actual fun thing about Mirror's Edge, and the few times the game stops for you, mandatory combat aren't fun, whether you use guns or not, but at least solving them with guns is fast and easy. Clearing them with only melee combat is a trial-and-error exercise of memorizing spawn locations and finding arbitrary magic routes that keep you from being exposed too long so you can get close to performing Faith's jank limited moveset. And when people talk about how satisfying it is to work that out, all I can think of is how, while they were getting bogged down in that, I simply clicked on the cops' heads and got back to doing cool level traversal long before they did. Ever hear of people glorifying a game with self-imposed limitations that make you think, why do that? That's a worse game. Cheers.
I think this is a great email because this is a forest in the trees thing in which I completely agree with this email. 100%.
But what's missing? What's missing from the scenario?
What's missing is that using the guns in Mirror's Edge feels and plays way worse than the entire thing they just described. It is faster. It is objectively faster, right? But shooting guns in Mirror's Edge 1 is miserable. You're super slow. It feels bad. It's not like built for it.
So it's interesting because as someone who likes the idea of the parkour person taking on the guns and fighting in that way, I love that idea. That's a fun immersive thing to get into and try to solve the problem with that limitation. But games that have come out since, like, you know, there's parkour in games like the ninja wall running
damn near everything else.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of like games that have come and have exactly right that have had Mirror's Edge like mechanics, but the gunplay or swordplay or fighting has been way more advanced and feels good to do, and the system's built around it. The entirety of Titanfall is practically like that.
Yeah.
The clunkiness of gunplay in Mirror's Edge clearly feels like you're not supposed to be doing this.
And like whether or not supposed to be, like we do know that there was like an argument internally as to whether or not to include guns at all. And then they split the difference by having the ability to just not do it. But like, yeah, no, guns in that game feel bad. And to your feeling that like, yes, I got through it a lot faster. And so I got rid of the bad part like more easily, and that it is annoying to like, you know, figure out the spawn locations and go through the magic path. That's true, but you're not accommodating for scale, and a lot of this is taste, right? Because me slowing to a crawl in Mirror's Edge when I pick up a gun feels way worse than having to figure out the enemy locations and die 20 times, because at least when I'm doing that second one, I'm still getting to run fast, which is the reason I'm playing Mirror's Edge.
The momentum of picking up speed and avoiding getting hit because you're moving at max speed is a real fun system that works into the game loop, even if you have to like find a couple of difficult routes to take to get up close to do a takedown, you know? Yeah, and I don't know what to say besides, like, if the immersion part of that means nothing to you, then you're just a different person from me, and you don't like the same things, and that's okay. But I also am somebody who, you know, like, I don't want to... you can use a bunch of items in character action games and smooth over that experience, and you can use a bottle rocket in Wonderful 101 and see what it does. I don't even know what it looks like when you use it, but it's there, you know, and that's like that's a way to play the game. But I think that when I'm thinking of like the part of the story with the character that is like not really a gun user, and like the fact that they allow you to do that, yeah, I enjoy that loop a lot more. I get more out of the fact that this is a parkouring game and it gives you a way to solve this. I'm also somebody, of course, I've said this, going out of the norm here. I've played BioShock 2 going for the Big Daddy build the whole way through the game.
Yeah.
right? That's a really unusual way to go with it, but I enjoyed that too. So I'm down to, approach the whole game in a very different way. But I just feel like this is one of those cut cases of like they made it feel bad, and the part of the team that did not agree, at the very least, whether or not they wanted it to. If they made gunplay feel really good and then part of the team was like, no, we don't want guns, that would have been weird,
Yeah, and like the character action thing that you mentioned is like probably my perfect example, because the core of the email is like, do you think of anything else that people decide to self-impose limitations? And it's like, the reason why you and I don't use items in character action games is not because they're not effective. It's because using them is dull. Like getting better at the combat is more interesting than using an item to mitigate damage or enemies.
So something that I'm talking about, I mentioned it last podcast, what I was like, the reason why I look around in Cyberpunk is because while people are talking, is not because I'm like ADHDing around the room, but it's because I'm trying to immerse myself and emulate a real conversation where I would look around while talking to somebody, right? We are looking at a history of games where we see the cutscene version of characters, and then we're like, can you live up to the promise of cutscene Dante? Can you live up to the promise of cutscene Faith? The cutscene version of the characters is like an ideal, and then the gameplay is like is a challenge to.
I can only think of one game I've ever played my entire life in which the in-game version of the character is in fact more impressive than the cutscene version of the character, and that is Vanquish.
Yeah, sure, right.
Vanquish's cutscene,
yeah.
Sam is fairly restrained, but like end of the game gameplay, Sam is out of control.
That's it. So it's ultimately like, I can't tell you to like pick up a habit and do something that feels annoying to you and say like that's the superior way to go. But I can say that like a lot of the time when I'm playing a game and I see like a style of play or like a challenge or something inherently like as a possibility that feels right with what the game is going for, I enjoy striving to achieve that, to match to match the design essentially.
I've been playing MGS3 and somebody asked a question. Do you think that the trank gun ruined Metal Gear?
Ooh.
And I said no. I don't think the trank gun ruined Metal Gear.
Interesting.
That's ridiculous because like in gameplay terms, it is like it's just a worse version of the pistol that you get for all those characters. But I thought about it more while we're having this conversation, and like for a certain type of player, it totally does ruin Metal Gear because if you want to do a no kill playthrough, part of that with nearly exclusively lethal weapons in Metal Gear 1 means you have like a really limited option to do that.
Yeah,
in Metal Gear 2, Solid 2, they just go, no, here's a really effective gun that will actually, you can just shoot everybody and then it'll be fine.
It's two things, right? One, it's going against the no kill philosophy, because if you're playing the game and you have like a Batman rule in your head, that's one experience that you're challenging, which to be fair, a lot of games do. I mean, obviously like Deus Ex, right? Literally, it's
I beat Human Revolution with 0 fatalities.
But then the second part of it is being sneaky is the other part of what a Metal Gear game is supposed to be. And if you stand on a cliffside and eliminate all the threats, then you don't have to do any sneaking.
Did you have to sneak? Like the most interesting thing that I did in the last time I streamed Metal Gear is that I went to one of those little bases in Metal Gear 3, and I thought I had tranked all the guards. But I didn't. I missed one. And he found one of the guards I had tranked. And then they spotted me. And then I had a whole fucking interaction and a fun gameplay sequence in which I was hiding from people and shooting people, et cetera. And it's like, if I just perfectly tranked all those guys from a mile away, then that section would have been really dull by comparison.
Also, some games are about sneaking and eliminating as you go, and other games are about sneaking and not interrupting the flow of things. And like,
it's the difference between pacifism and Ghost.
Right. people that are calling in for radio rounds and going, somebody's missing, go check it out. It's like, okay, the game doesn't want you to remove people as you go, you know? So, Hitman,
it's always interesting in a game that it's like, can you do this mission? And it's like you didn't exist.
Nothing
outside of the main objective.
Nothing, no hair is out of place except taking out
the higher levels of difficulty on Hitman.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the guy is dead, but nothing happened. That's what, huh?
I'm always reminded of the snow mansion where you just shoot out the bottom of the hot tub from the glass from way below. And like, if your mark is in the glass, there they go. And we don't even walk into the house. We don't even walk into the house. We don't even play the mission. We just look up, pop, pop. All right. Good job, 47.
Yeah, but there's a lot of ways to limit yourself and get enjoyment. Like, for example, let's take a really long look at this. Let's say I want to play Street Fighter, and Paige doesn't want to play Street Fighter. Well, there's only one other person in my house right now that can fight me in local Street Fighter, and that is a human baby. Now, if I just grab this controller and grabbed all these buttons and went, let's go, little man, that's not going to be very enjoyable because he's like a goo goo gaga and I will whoop his ass. But if I have the condition of I can't hold the controller, I can only press buttons with my index finger, I could at least have some level of enjoyment.
There you go. Also,
I'll still win though.
Give the baby dynamic mode, then you'll see what's up.
He's got to learn.
Yeah, no, there's use cases for those things, you know?
Has to mow the lawn every week until he can beat me in a fighting game of his choice.
That's a good motivator.
That might take a bit.
That might take a minute.
That might take a minute.
That's a hell of a motivator, though.